One of my fondest memories of when I was a child, and I don't know, 5, 6, maybe around that age, was watching John Wayne movies with my father. Surprising how popular John Wayne and the Western culture were in Ireland. They even had Western clubs where the Irishmen would go dressed up as cowboys. It's kind of interesting because a lot of the original cowboys came from my neck of the woods. They were Scots-Irishmen. They came out to this part of the country for fortune and fame and to get up to all kinds of nonsense. But I used to like watching the John Wayne movies with my dad, and some of my favorite parts was when, I don't know how they'd end up with some kind of wild stallion or something, but it got corralled and no one could break that horse. But John could. He sent John out there into the corral to get control of this wild animal, this thing that would, kick and bite and smash down the fences. And John would go out there and he'd work with the horse. And then eventually, over time, the movie would progress and he would break the horse. And then he would get on it and ride that horse off out into the prairie. And I loved that part of the movie. I'm not sure why. I'm afraid of horses. I'm afraid of a lot of things. A lot of animals. I used to not be afraid of deer until Christopher told me that those bucks will have a go at you. So now I'm terrified out there fishing, watching out for the big bucks going to, attack me. But horses kind of intimidate me because they're so big and they're so powerful. And, if that thing wanted to hurt you, you could really get badly hurt by a horse. Thank goodness they tend not to have that temperament, but you could even just get kicked by accident by an animal that size. And I've known people where it's changed their lives forever, where, maybe a head injury or something like that. But I used to love the movies where John would break the horse and bring it under control. And Jesus talks about this very thing in Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. Jesus says this: "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." When the word meekness, the picture we want to have here is the horse that was wild, that was dangerous, that was out of control, that could kill a person with a kick or scar them for life with biting them, that horse is brought under control and become meek. Now, this is what Jesus is talking about. Meekness means power, but power under control. And Jesus says that there's a blessedness in this. Remember, we talked about blessing meaning fruitfulness, meaning growth, meaning strength, meaning expansion, meaning vitality. This is what blessed means. And Jesus says that there's this fruitfulness for those who have come under his control, whose power is now under Christ's control. I lived and am tempted at times to live a life like that, like a wild horse, doing what seems good to me, fulfilling my desires and putting my happiness above everything else and everyone else in the world. And why am I tempted to do that? Because in that wildness, there's the illusion, there's the aroma, there's the appearance of freedom. But all it really brings, when I'm going to get what I want to get, regardless of what it costs anyone, the only thing that it brings is death. Be it in relationships. For goodness sake, we heard a young man who's still hospitalized today, who we hope God is gracious to him and he recovers. But there was selfishness and recklessness and wickedness nearly bringing death upon that boy. And the facts are, regardless of how any of us think, we've all been there. We've all experienced it. We've all felt it when we thought, I'm going to just run wild and do what I want to do. We become like the horse who's not only hurt others, but a wild horse that'll hurt itself, and a broken leg, and that animal's done. Christ came into the world to bring us freedom from our out-of-control, wild living, from our destructive ways. He came into the world to free us from ourselves and bring us under his control, that we might have meekness in our lives. But we have to freely choose to become his disciple. We have to embrace this meekness and come under God's control. And when we do that, we become strong. We become fruitful. We become immovable. We start to flourish individually and corporately as his people under God's control. Because blessed are the meek. Now, some people have interpreted this as blessed are the weak. Now, that's a mistake. That's a critical mistake. We're not called to come under Christ's control to become doormats for other people. Being a Christian isn't about being a walkover for people. See, we live in a world where everybody wants to tell us what to do. We're always in a power struggle with others. And regardless of their good intentions, and some people have good intentions, maybe family or friends. There might even be some politicians out there with good intentions, even celebrities. They're wanting control and power over us. Some of them are very shrewd about how they want to control others. Some people will come along and say, well, can you help me do this? And they get awfully upset when you say no. Sometimes they come along and they want you to explain yourself to them. Well, why can't you help me? I don't have to tell you that. I said no, and my no means no. Because we've been told, let your yes be yes and your no, no. Some people don't like it where we don't explain ourselves to them. Some people think we're really obliged to. Listen, this is an effort to rule over us. We have to remember that blessed are the meek because we are ruled over by Christ and Christ alone. Nobody else. We don't answer to anybody but Christ alone because we have come under his control. We are his servants. And it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter if they're a priest or a prophet or a preacher, or they call themselves a pope or a politician or a president, a parent, a partner, anybody who thinks they're a potentate, anybody who thinks they have power over us. They're mistaken. Oh, they're terribly mistaken. We are meek, but we, as disciples of Christ, are not weak. Pliny was a governor of Bithynia. He's writing to Caesar, telling about how he's persecuting the Christians. He just wants instructions how to do it. He says, I've hesitated greatly as to whether any distinction should be made on the ground of age. Do I persecute the young ones, he's asking? Or whether the weak should be treated in the same way as the strong. Should I pardon or grant pardon the penitent, those who deny Jesus? Or is there a risk that one who has always been a Christian gain nothing by renouncing it? He's saying, should I torture them if they say they deny Jesus? Should I punish them, he says, even if no crime or crimes are associated with the name? He says, I ordered your image to be brought out. Statue of Caesar. Bring out the statue of Caesar. Set it before them. And I also had them curse Christ. But that's something that those who are truly Christians cannot be compelled to do. They brought out the statue of Caesar and says, look, we'll stop torturing you if you just put a little bit of incense in the fire and say, Caesar is Lord. He says you can't do that to the real ones. Why? Because we're meek, but we're not weak. We're meek, but we're not weak. Christians are the tyrant's worst nightmare. We don't discriminate against who we refuse to submit to. We don't care who you are. We're servants of Christ. We're under his control. And we won't listen to anybody but Christ. All the dictators, all the wannabe bosses, all the rulers, all of those who are bullies, it doesn't matter if they're family or siblings, doesn't matter if it's the whole neighborhood. We don't care if the whole world lines up against us. We will not submit to wickedness because we are meek. We're not weak. And the tyrants know that. We're the obstacle in this country, the unbelievable tyranny that is waiting to break out here. We're the last line of defense, not because we're strong, but because Christ is, and Christ is in us. In Israel, there's a company called Stardust Solutions. You should listen closely to this. They've begun testing a system to disperse a cloud of tiny reflective particles about 60,000 feet into the altitude to reflect the sun away from the earth to cool the atmosphere. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. It sounds like a joke, doesn't it? Bill Gates and his friends are behind this company. They are planning, scheming to shoot 60,000 put reflective particles 60,000 feet into the altitude to reflect the sun away from the earth because they believe that there's in global warming. What could go wrong? I mean, that's a genius plan. Blocking out the sun. I mean, it's genius. We don't have a problem with racism in this world. We don't have a problem with global warming or inequality or lack of equity. We've got a problem with men. We've got a problem with wealthy billionaires who are absolute maniacs, who have gone off the rails. And the reason they do this is because they think they are in control. Men thinking that they have power. And they don't care what they'll do. They'll abuse it to get their way. Because remember, in all of this, the reason for blocking out the sun, it's to save the earth, but it's to save it for them. Because they don't care anything about you and I. Man trying to grab hold of the earth, grab hold of the creation. It's always been a problem in the world. And it's went on from the beginning of time. And it's not changed today. And we look at it at times and we think, this isn't fair. We've got ruthless, psychopathic, crazed billionaires who are going to destroy everything. And they're going to live in bunkers in the ground and survive us all. Listen, it only looks that way. It only looks like they have power. It only looks like these guys are gonna do all of these crazy things. Because blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. They shall inherit the earth. Not these billionaire gangsters and psychopaths. Not these crazed lunatic politicians. Not these guys coming up with all kinds of stupid schemes and trying to push it on top of us. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. It's interesting here that Jesus is referring to Psalm 37 when he talks about the meek shall inherit the earth. Listen to the amount of times he says this. Evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait on the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For in a little while the wicked shall be no more. Indeed, you shall look carefully for his place. Where is Bill Gates? What happened to poor Bill? He's gone, is what's going to happen, right? But it shall be, he shall be no more. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. Verse 11. Verse 22. For those blessed by him shall inherit the earth, but those cursed by him shall be cut off. Verse 29. The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell in it forever. Verse 34, but wait on the Lord and keep his way, and he shall exalt you to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, you shall see it. This is what Jesus is talking about when he says, blessed are the meek. Nothing to do with weakness. Nothing to do with being a doormat. Nothing to do with people just deciding they're going to stamp all over the top of you. Jesus is bringing these Jewish believers back to Psalm 37 and telling them this. It doesn't matter what it looks like out there when it comes to evil men trying to get their way. You're getting it all. You're getting it all. All of it? The whole thing? Yes. You're getting it. The meek. Those who will not use their power to exalt themselves above others, will not put everybody down around them, will not go around gossiping and whining and complaining and ungrateful and all of the other wickedness. They won't do that because they have come under God's control. And God, in his great wisdom, says, I'm giving it all to you. All of it. That's how God rolls. I like God. I really like God. Because all of the schemers, all of the planners, all of the people that think, oh, now we're going to get a hold of the country and next we'll take over Europe and we're going to have a whole world, one world government. Whatever they're thinking, that psalm says as well, he who sits in heaven laughs at them. And he laughs because the nobodies, the people who have been looked over, the people who have been deprived, the victims, the innocent, the people who just won't go around hurting others to get their way, he's given it all to them, but not the wicked. Over and over and over and over again in that psalm, they're going to perish. And not just in this world. Nobody is escaping God's judgment. Listen, nobody. And it doesn't matter how old they are, doesn't matter if they, like Hitler, went off and committed suicide and was burned. He is getting justice. Everybody's getting justice in the end. And it's coming by the hand of God. Caesar, and I'm going to wrap it up here, Marcus Aurelius, he was a Stoic philosopher, a good pagan, if you could use that term, is how they would have referred to him. Well, Marcus was Caesar in the empire, and he was a successful Caesar. So when the people, when he was even seen by the people, they would come out in tens of thousands and praise him and worship him. And Marcus Aurelius had a man on his payroll, and his only job was to come up to him and whisper in his ear, "Remember, you're not God. You're only a man." That was his only job. Remember, you're only a man. Why did Marcus do that? And that was wise of him. Because he could have started believing this idea that he was God. And some of these billionaires in this country, they're doing that. And they could start acting that way. And Marcus could have started acting that way. And the result of it, God will level you. He'll snatch the life right out of a man. And he's done it in the past, and it's a disaster. Christ in his wisdom brings us together today to remind you and I of this. You're only human. You're only a girl. You're only a woman. You're only a man. You're only a boy. Remember who God is. This kind of wild horse kind of living, it's only going to damage you and damage those around you. Come under God's control. Become meek, not weak. Power under control. Because in that state, there's blessing, there's fruitfulness, there's strength, there's growth. There's everything that you're looking for when you're under Christ's control. And in the end, never forget this. We're going to get it all. Let me finish with Paul's words here in Romans 8. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us. Romans 8:18. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subject to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope, because the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groans and labors with birth pangs together until now. Not only that, but we also who have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For we were saved in this hope. But hope that is seen is not hope, for why does one still hope for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with perseverance. We've come under Christ's control. We've become meek, not weak. And he's planning, when this thing's all wrapped up, to give us it all.